Hey guys! So about 5 months ago, I bought the Lectric XP e-bike. 2 months later, the Lectric 2.0 came out, and for $50 extra, I could upgrade to that. After much anticipation, my bike finally arrived. So let's take a look at what we got here.
Oh yeah. Okay, so my electric bike finally came in, and today I'm going to show you some of the features that this thing has. So firstly, let's start up here.
The first thing we have is this small LCD display. This thing shows you your miles or kilometers per hour. It has a speedometer, an odometer, a battery level indicator, and it'll show you which of the 5 pedal assist modes that you're in. On the left hand side we have the power switch. Plus increases the pedal assist from 1 to 5, and minus does what you'd expect. They do a bit more than this, but I'll get into all that later. On the right side of the handlebars we have a gear shift, and then you have your throttle.
I was thinking this would be the throttle, but that actually just sits there. It doesn't even do anything.
Now this bike also folds in half, which is one of the main reasons that I decided to get it, and it actually doesn't take much time to fold it down. The battery actually goes into the midsection of the bike once it's split apart, and I can demonstrate all that now.
Okay, so this slot right in the base, that's where the battery goes. So you take the battery and you slot it up in there. And then you have to take this key, and from the bottom side, which I can show you, I think, yeah, the keyhole is right there. You lock it into place, and that little bolt right there will lock right into that hole. So I'm gonna do that real quick and show you what that looks like. So essentially, you take the key and you unlock it like that, and then you push it up and it locks into place. The first mode is off, and then you flick it and that is now on. So, one sec. I am now going to unfold it and turn the power on real quick.
It only takes a few moments to fold and unfold the bike. The only struggle you could really have is with the weight. The bike is 68 pounds or roughly 30 kilograms, which can make this folding and unfolding process a bit tricky. But once I got my bike unfolded, it was now time for the first test ride.
Now, there are a few things that I have purchased in anticipation for this bike. Some little accessories and upgrades that I'm going to do. So, yeah, let's go ahead and throw those on there and see how this looks.
So, there were quite a few different upgrades that I wanted for the bike. I wanted a new seat, new handlebars, a suspension seat post, mirrors, a basket, and of course, a bag for carrying my drinks. So let's get into the upgrades.
So now the first thing I bought was this Cloud 9 memory foam seat cushion. This is, like I just said, made of memory foam, but then I attached a Zoom suspension seat post to it. So if I go over bumps, I'm gonna have a little more suspension. Now, there is suspension right here on the front, which is something that the 2.0 implemented. So there's already front suspension, and you can actually adjust that with this lock right here. But your butt just kind of takes the damage while you're on the road. So first thing I'm gonna do is pop this seat off, which is actually really comfortable. I was quite surprised. And we're gonna throw this in its place. Jesus, that is a long pole. It should be the same thickness. Oh, there we go, there we go. Oh yeah, that's nice. And you can also adjust the suspension in the seat so that it's, needs more pressure or less pressure, but for now I'm gonna keep it where it's at. And yeah, that is that is comfortable. So that's accessory number 1, and so now we're going to work on these handlebars.
Now, don't get me wrong here, these handlebars are fine, but I wanted something with a bit more space so I could attach a GoPro to them, and I like the idea of mounting the LCD screen lower on the bike. So I got myself BMX handlebars and went to work. All I had to do was remove the mechanisms from the original bars and swap them out. First thing I removed was the LCD screen, and it didn't take me too long to realize that most of these handlebar screws are Allen screws, and they're all wildly different sizes. I also gotta say the metal around the bike is a bit chintzy in certain places. To steal words from Adam, some of this bike is made of Chinesium, and I'll probably be replacing a lot of these screws with real metal one day instead of using the Play-Doh that they're made of now. Now the next thing I had to do was remove the handlebar grips. Now this can be a pain in the ass, but there's a pretty common trick you can use to get them off real easy. All it takes is an air compressor.
So yeah, this little thing is very important. It goes in there and makes sure that this has clearance so it doesn't rub up against that and the throttle gets stuck. So this is an important piece. I'm gonna pocket that so I don't lose it.
Now that the stock handlebars were off the bike, it was time to put on the new ones. Now you'd imagine this would be as easy as tightening the new ones down. However, we ran into a few issues with this step.
The base of these may not be thick enough relative to how this cinches down, so I may have to put a bit of foam around that and then retighten them again.
You think so?
Because that's fully tightened.
Oh, it is. Oh, no.
So the diameter of the handlebars was actually thinner than the diameter of the retentioner here. So I took some of this cloth here and I wrapped it around this and we were able to get it to stick. So then I painted it black so that you won't really notice it, but that will allow us to have some more tension so that this will actually sit properly. Gotta make sure they're nice and even. And now, if I hold on to these handlebars, those are not going anywhere. So that's perfect. That little piece of fabric was actually more than enough to get these to be stable.
Now, as optimistic as I was that this would fix the issue, the handlebars were still loose. So I went over to Adam's house and we tried a few things. First thing he tried was some rubber, and that didn't work. Then he tried a thinner rubber fabric material, and that didn't work. Third time's the charm though, is he took a polyethylene tube, cut it into shape, and just like that, the handlebars worked like a charm.
So now the next thing we have to do is reassemble all of this stuff.
Back to my garage, the only thing that was left to do was to remember what order the components went onto the handlebars, tighten them back down, and my ride was updated and ready to go. Project 2 was complete. So, now that that's all on, nice and tight,
I've got my screen down here now, so I can put a GoPro right here. All this is back to the way it was, so now we can move on to project number 3.
This third project was really simple. I wanted some bike mirrors. Being as this bike can reach speeds of up to 28 miles an hour and people on the road are dicks who don't give a crap about bicycle riders, I wanted to have a way to see my surroundings. All I had to do was cut a circle into the ends of my handlebar grips, pop these in, and tighten them down. Now, there were a couple more things that I added to the bike that didn't need a tutorial video made. For instance, I attached this water bottle bag to the front so I can carry drinks or other small items like keys or even my phone. I got this 16mm kryptonite 5-digit bike chain so people are less enticed to steal it, and I added a cheap little basket that I got on Amazon which I mounted on the back. Now that the bike was souped up, it was time for my second ride around the neighborhood. So let's talk about the tech specs of this bike. The Lectric 2.0 comes with a 500 watt motor that can overclock to 800 watts when extra power is needed, like if you're going up a steep hill or traveling through sand and want to maintain speed. The bike will automatically switch between these two power modes, which is one reason that I really liked it so much. Now, the battery on this bike is a 48 volt 9.6 amp hour battery, which is okay. I'm not going to say it's the greatest battery out there because it simply isn't, but it's also not disappointing either. You see, there are 5 pedal assist modes on this bike. Pedal assist 1 reaches about 5 miles an hour, 2 is roughly 10, 3 is 15, and 4 is around 20. And then pedal assist 5 can get you up to 28 miles per hour so long as you unlock that pedal assist mode in the bike's advanced settings menu. There's also a pedal assist off mode, but honestly there's no reason to turn the bike on if you're not going to be using the pedal assists. May as well ride the bike to a mid-low gear, maybe somewhere around 4 or 5, and keep the battery off. Now, in these pedal assist modes, the battery will drain more or less depending on which one you're in, and this is where I was a smidge let down. See, if you want to go 20 miles an hour, that's fine. However, the battery will only push you about 15 to 20 miles depending on your weight, wind speed, terrain, and other such conditions. If you want to reach 40 to 50 miles on this bike, you need to stay at pedal assist 1 or 2, which is around 10 miles an hour, or pedal assist 3, which is again around 15. That speed is honestly more than fine, especially since I've been using this bike on and off without the battery turned on to see how fast that I can go myself, and in the 4th and 5th gear, it's very comfortable to ride, and I'm going about 10 to 15 miles an hour anyway. Now that may sound a bit slow, but you gotta remember that you're carrying your weight plus 68 extra pounds, so this thing's not gonna be a speed demon without that battery helping you out. Once the battery is drained, it takes about 4 to 6 hours to charge it to full. I did the math on this, and depending on where you live and how much you pay for electricity, if you rode this bike every day, drained it completely every day, and charged it every night, you'd spend about 28 to 70 cents a week, which is one reason to get something like this over an enduro or dirt bike that you gotta fill with gas. Plus, if you're charging this with solar panels, then yeah. Now I mentioned before that the function buttons over here do a bit more than adjust the pedal assist. If you hold the plus button for 3 seconds, you can turn on and off the lights. Holding the plus button for 5 seconds will wipe the odometer, and holding the plus and minus buttons together for 3 seconds will open the advanced settings menu, where you can switch from miles to kilometers, adjust the bike's tire size, which you will want to do as it's set to 22x3, and these tires are 20x3. From this menu, you can also change the sensitivity of the pedal assist so you can get that motor to engage faster or slower depending on when you'd prefer to get that extra juice. A couple other things to note. This bike has mechanical disc brakes, which work very well, and you can easily come to a quick stop if need be. And in the manual, they give you torque values for the screws on the bike so that you can tighten them to spec yourself instead of guessing or taking them to a bike shop as soon as you get it. Now I'd like to get into the pros and cons of this bike. I've done a lot of research in anticipation of it, and when I finally got it, there were things that I loved and things that I didn't. So let's start with the pros. The first pro, and one of the reasons that I went for this bike, is the fact that the battery is hidden. I like that this thing kind of looks like a bulky multi-terrain bike, and since I moved the screen from the top of the bike to in between my handlebars, it also makes it harder for others to tell that this is an electric bike. Besides the fact that it basically screams, "I'm electric!" on the side of the damn thing, but whatever. The second pro is cruise control. While you're holding the throttle at the speed you want to go, if you press the minus button for 2 seconds, the bike will enter cruise control and maintain that speed. I probably won't use this feature being as it does drain the battery to not be assisting the bike, but it's still really a neat feature and I'm glad it's here. Especially if I want to get some nice standing shots on the bike while I maintain my current speed. The next pro is similar. This is a walk mode. If you come to a stop and hold down the minus button, the bike will travel at a similar pace to a slow walk. This will help people push the bike up steep hills that they don't want to ride up, or walk it down the road and they don't want to push that 68-pound metal beast the whole way. Now I want to talk about the mounts here, as there were more than I initially expected. There are these mounts on the back, which I took advantage of, but there are also basket mounts on the front where you can attach another basket. There's also a bottle cage lock down here so you can store a water bottle instead of getting a bag like I did. These are all great spots for boxes, cages, bags, baskets, and pockets, and I'm really glad that there are so many places to mount your stuff. Now, I didn't mention this earlier, but this bike is also IP65 water resistant, which means in light rain you'll be more than okay to keep on moving. If it's pouring though, you're gonna want to get to shelter, and you definitely don't want to submerge this bike, as water damage is not covered under the warranty. Now, this next pro is only going to affect you once, but if you ever bought an electric bike before, you know that some assembly is required. Typically, the front wheel is removed during shipping, but since this bike folds up the way it does, the bike actually came fully assembled. Kind of a dumb pro since it'll never affect you ever again, but it's also kind of nice that you don't have to build it once it gets to your door. One thing that might affect you though is the fact that there are 2 ways to charge the battery. They give you this little laptop charger, and you can either remove the battery completely, or you can remove this rubber button and plug the charger directly into the bike. The full charge indicator is on the power brick, so you don't have to check the battery to know if it's fully charged or not, which is nice since they recommend you don't charge the battery once it's full. The last pro is the advanced settings screen. I love that you can go in and change the speed at which your bike can go, that you can set it to the distance measurement you prefer, tweak the sensitivity of the motor. It's all very nice, and they really did pack in a ton of features for this price. The bike is basically $1,000, and I noticed when researching electric bikes that for the price, this thing offers features in a package that not many others do until you get up to the $1,500 range. This moves us into the cons, and there are a few. This is not to say the bike is bad, but some of these might be enough of a turnoff for some of you, and it's important to know exactly what you're looking for when picking an e-bike. So, the first con is one that I discovered and haven't heard other people mention. So, this light here is fine. I mean, in pitch darkness, you're only really going to be able to see 2 to 5 feet in front of you, and it's mostly going to be the road that's visible. The light isn't really that impressive, but what I disliked about it is if I'm using my bike without the battery, just cruising around and treating it like your average everyday bike, I can't turn on the lights unless I turn on the battery. Now, you may think that's a pretty obvious statement, but if I wanted to pedal my bike myself in 4th gear and ride around at night, I would have to turn the bike on, keep the pedal assist off, and then turn the lights on. And it would have been nice if the lights had their own hookup to the battery so that you can switch them on even if the bike is off. Again, the front light really isn't even that impressive anyway, so you can remedy this with a high-powered bike light that you just throw on. The next con is the screws that they used on the bike, especially on the handlebars. A lot of these screws may as well be a mix of clay and plastic. The second I loosened some of them, they were stripping, and I'm probably going to hit a hardware store soon and swap them all out with real metal. The next con is the battery. The Lectric 2.0 comes with a 9.6 amp hour battery, which is a bit strange since the original Lectric XP came with a 10.4 amp hour. It's just a tad weird that they upgraded and improved everything else on this bike, but scaled this back. Now, I hear you can buy the 10.4 amp hour battery and use it for this bike. Again, if that's true, what the hell? Why not just come stock with that? I feel like this battery could be a bit of a leash, especially if you want to go fast, if you want to hit that 20 miles an hour for your entire duration. You're going to go for about 15 to 20 miles, and then you're going to be pedaling this 70-pound beast back to your house with an empty tank, and it would have been nice to have kept the larger battery for this reason. The last con is, as much as this looks like a mountain bike, you're definitely not going to be doing some hefty off-roading. Don't get me wrong, this will easily go off-road. It can handle a wide variety of terrain, but you're not going to be the guy doing tricks and speeding through the environment like an adrenaline junkie. You're likely going to be cruising through, which is more than fine, but just make sure you're aware that this is a fun multi-terrain cruiser. It's not a sports machine. Now, some of these cons aren't really going to affect me much, especially the battery issue. I don't plan on using the motor all the time. I may ride this thing around cities, and then when I'm a bit worn out, I'll turn on the pedal assist to level 2 or 3 and cruise for a little bit before catching my breath and shutting the bike off again. This honestly might be the best way to really conserve this battery and get the absolute most out of this thing, and like I said before, switching to gear 4 or 5 will negate the weight of this bike and let you ride it around much like your average bike. Though, without that motor, you're not going to win any races against people with standard pedal bikes. They'll win. They have less weight and a thinner frame, and it's best used as a cruiser to explore your city or go to a little cafe without burning gas. For as long as I've used it so far, I really like this bike. There's so much potential for fun activities as I travel around, and there's always so much more that I can add on to it. I noticed Lectric themselves sell a lot of different accessories on their website, but they seem to be much more expensive than other places online. For example, if I wanted to get new tires for this bike, I could spend about $30 on a random online store, whereas on Lectric's site, they're $80. Must be all that inflation. Bye guys.